Now, let me tell you, I know that New York City and Los Angeles are gigantic cities, but it is nowhere as confusing as Seoul, South Korea. I have been here at least 3 times in the past 6 months, but I've yet to figure where anything is. But I still decided to stupidly walk around without my cell phone at 2 in the morning. It was in the middle of a conference and I just couldn't go to sleep, so I grabbed a coat and walked out of my hotel room. There really wasn't anything going on inside of the hotel. The bar was closed and the computer room was locked. The swimming pool and gym closed at 10 p.m, so I made the dumb decision to walk around outside. I tried to keep track of which street I took, but after walking around for 20 minutes, I quickly forgot where I was. Taxis are all around this city at any time, so catching a cab and getting back to the hotel would not be a problem. After a couple more minutes of walking, I noticed that the huge buildings started to disappear, and the sounds of cars became extinct. This was absolutely perfect for me. I found a little convenience store and grabbed a couple of beers and walked down the street, hoping to find a park of some sort. The lady in the front counter greeted me when I walked in, but I noticed how old the store looked. I looked at her and saw that she was a fairly short woman, maybe in her early 20s. I know it doesn't seem important, but to me it felt strange that a young woman like her would work in a rundown store like this. I pushed the thoughts out of my mind and grabbed 2 bottles of soju, the most popular Korean alcohol beverage, and only around $1. I paid for my drinks and walked out of the store. Something about this location made the weather feel just right. Usually it's completely cold in the middle of February, but it felt so nice out I could take my coat off. This was definitely the most comfortable couple of hours of my life. The fact that there were far less people here than the rest of Seoul made it just that much better. While I was walking down the street and sipping on the soju, I looked around and noticed that there were almost no buildings around me. There was just a park in the distance and 3 other smaller buildings, including the convenience store. I also noticed that I was walking up to the park without even noticing, but it did seem like a really nice place to drink the rest of my drink, so I kept going. On the way there, I finished off the first drink, so I placed the empty bottle in my pocket. I took a little rest to catch my breath and opened the next bottle. After my mini break, I looked back up and noticed that the park seemed to be a bit farther away. I rubbed my eyes, but the park still seemed to be farther away. For a second, I thought about turning back around and catching a cab, but I decided against it. Already halfway there, what was the point in giving up with a full bottle of soju anyways? This time, I focused on the walk while I walked towards it, only taking my eyes off of it occasionally to take another drink. I started to slowly calm down when I noticed I was definitely getting closer. Around 50 paces away from the park, I tripped on something and fell to the ground. Right as I was falling down, I know for a fact I heard someone whispering to me. It was in Korean, but I will try my hardest to translate. Come in, it's fun, you won't regret it. I got up and looked around, but the only thing that was there was what tripped me. It was an empty bottle of beer. I picked it up to chuck it into the grass when I noticed how old it felt. I could make out the words Jinro Brewing on the bottle. I turned the bottle around to see if I could read anything else on it. My eyes finally fell on a series of numbers. 19531011. I don't know why it was the beer bottle that made me run away from the park. I don't know why I didn't run away when I heard the whispers, but I just wish I never even went out of my hotel room. I bolted down the street and towards the convenience store, but every couple of steps, I kept hearing the park call back to me. "Don't run, so we can play. Come in here. Forever you can stay." I ignored the calling, but I will tell you that every time it called out to me, I was just that much more tempted to go back to the park. Just look back once and it'll stop. Against my will, I stopped completely and looked back. The park was gone, but a group of children were running around the empty lot. A man carrying a beer bottle was walking down the street towards the park. He took out a knife from his back pocket and threw the bottle on the ground. The kids stopped playing and looked at the man with curiosity. Without slowing down, he walked up to the first kid and raised the knife up. But before he could even stab the kid, the other children swarmed around him and took out a knife. A couple stabbed his legs, a few jumped on him, and the rest just stepped back and watched while laughing. The man's blood was flying all over the lot. I couldn't watch any longer, so I turned around and continued to run to the convenience store. I kept running away from the park and from the laughter coming from the children. Right when I got near the convenience store, the noise stopped. I turned around and the park was back there again. When I got up to the store, I tried opening the doors, but it was locked. I tried shaking the doors harder, hoping it was jammed, but the door wouldn't give. Desperation started to take over my body, but I ignored it and started to walk away. That is when the door rattled from the other side. I walked back up to the door and saw the lady that checked me out. I started to point to the door, but she shook her head slowly at me. Bits of her skin started falling off of her face every time she moved. She said, "Go to the park. You can stay forever. You can never die. Stay at the park. You will be happy." I screamed and banged the door where her face was and kept running away from the park. I started to see familiar buildings and started to calm down. After a couple of minutes, I started to walk. The streets of a busy Seoul started to come into view. I got on my knees and thanked the world for saving my life. I took out the second bottle of soju and took a long chug of it. I finished the bottle off and threw the bottle in the grass and looked up. I was back in the park. The kids started to come out of the shadows and slowly walked up to me. I frantically looked around, hoping there was some sort of place of shelter. My eyes fell on an older phone booth. I forced myself onto my feet and ran inside of the phone booth and picked up the phone. After muttering a quick prayer, I put the phone up to my ear. The relief I felt when I heard the dial tone is beyond words. With tears falling from my eyes, I put 500 won, or 50 cents, and called for a taxi. I thought about calling the cops for a second, but I knew there was zero chance in hell they would believe my story. The dispatcher answered my call, and I told her that I needed a ride from the park close to Ibis Hotel. She asked me where the park was exactly, but all I could do was describe out what the park looked like and what the stores around it looked like. She muttered silently for a second and said that a taxi was on its way. By the time I hung up the phone, the kids had surrounded the phone booth. They started to bang all around me, but I sat down as low as I could and put my feet against the doors. A girl with long flowing brown hair walked up to me and stared me down with a smile on her face. Her body started to bubble around the midsection and legs. Her face started to stretch out until the woman from the convenience store was staring down at me. She started chanting with the kids. "Open the door. Live forever. Just open the door. Escape the terror." A couple of the kids started to jam their knives into the door and pry it open. I kept my legs in the same spot. Waves of pain overcame my body whenever they stabbed my feet, but I held on. I didn't want to die. I didn't care about my feet. I just wanted to live. I just wanted to be at the hotel. I wanted to go back home. When my legs started to give out, I heard a honk in the distance. I looked to my right and saw a taxi. I got to my feet and braced myself to be attacked by the children, but I was only met by the sound of impatient honking. I opened my eyes to see that the kids and the woman disappeared. The park looked to be ages older. I opened the door and deadbolted to the taxi and got in the back. The taxi driver took one look at me and asked where I was headed. I muttered the Ibis Hotel, and he drove off. On the way there, the taxi driver kept giving me an odd look. I asked him why he was staring, but he just shrugged his shoulders and kept driving till we arrived at my hotel. I opened the door and started to head out when he grabbed me by the shoulder. He whispered to me, "Every couple of weeks we get a call over here. That's why we knew where you were. Avoid the park at all costs. It is still haunted by the ghosts of children that are responsible for 12 deaths in their town. Many men tried to stop them, but they were unsuccessful. Now they stay at the park and prey upon people that foolishly go near it. You are lucky. You survived. Keep it that way." I am at my hotel now. I wanted to give you this warning. If you happen to be in Korea and you find yourself in Seoul, please only stay in areas that are heavily populated. I leave you this final warning before I head out to the park. I can't stop thinking about all of them. I want to live forever. I want to know what true happiness is. Goodbye.